Hello, everyone. This is that Weems guy, and I have three distinguished gentlemen joining us right now, and possibly a fourth. And we will go ahead and get started with the introductions. Seth.
Seth Thompson. I'm a fairly recently retired sheriff's deputy from out west. Had a law enforcement career, started in 1995 as a part-time city police officer. I've worked as a park ranger, worked in corrections. Currently, I'm just part-timing at a state law enforcement training center, helping with firearms and use of force training. Working on some own projects of my own and doing some writing. So,
Okay, cool. Kevin.
And speaking of writing, my name is Kevin Creighton. I work full-time for the National Rifle Association. I run shootingillustrated.com. I also am a firearms trainer out here in Southwest Florida. I run quietlyarmed.com.
Rick.
I'm the owner and chief instructor of foundational defensive training up in Northwest Washington State.
Well, Seth and Kevin, as you are both writing, Kevin publishes for numerous things, and Seth, you're just trying to get. I want to throw this out. I had said we were going to go in the clock face order, but this time we're going to go out of order. Since Kevin, you are the most accomplished published out of this bunch. How does one go about getting started in that?
The days, it's kind of interesting you say that, because there are so many people right now in the writing side of things who got their start in blogging. There's Tam Teal, who's the handguns editor at Shooting Illustrated, where I work. She also writes for Recoil Web and a bunch of other magazines. She started as a blogger. Tom McHale, who is over at American Handgunner, started as a blogger. Caleb Giddings, who does marketing for Taurus now, started as a blogger. But there's all these people out there that started off as a blogger, and that wave has kind of crested through the ecosystem now, where now you see people are more interested in becoming a big YouTube star. And there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, I love Ian. Ian's a good friend of mine. John Correa is a friend of mine. They do have a great function, but you don't need to really put your thoughts down on paper as much when you do that sort of thing. I would much rather have a link from a influential independent blogger like Glenn Reynolds over at Instapundit than a mention on Ian McCollum's channel, because Glenn's going to drive a whole lot more traffic. So my response would be write. When in doubt, write. Start your own blog. Do your, we call blogging intellectual prototyping. I've got a guy working now for us, P.E. Fitch. He's known to a bunch of y'all. He's writing a lot for us right now. He's a good writer, and he writes every day. Find your niche and start writing about it. That's the easiest way to do it. People say, I have other writers that say, well, how do you get around writer's block? Well, you get around writer's block by writing.
All right. So say your organization, one of your publications is looking for somebody. Do y'all look for like a blog that has like a lot of followers and hits, or you look for the quality of the writing?
Look for the quality of the writing. First and foremost, do you have a voice? Can you talk about the product and not yourself? I don't really care. You read like a lot of recipes these days, and they have 2 paragraphs of your grandmother's relationship with sweet tea, and then they come to the recipe for sweet tea. I'd much rather have you write about the sweet tea itself. Stuff like that. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience with a wide variety of firearms or a wide variety of stuff, but you do have to have some. If you're a competitor, talk about that. If you've taken a lot of classes, talk about that. If you're, at this point, I could probably sit down. If Tam hasn't written a book on, Smith & Wesson double action, single action guns, she could. That's her kind of niche that she's got. Find that niche and roll with it. I started out with this by writing about concealed carry in the office, because I was working in marketing at the time, and I carried in the office. That was, kind of how I started on things.
I have a blog, but it started out as just a way for me to catalog my answers to questions I was getting asked all the time.
And that's perfectly valid. Yeah, absolutely.
That was back when I was a chief deputy of the sheriff's office, and I just got tired of writing the same email constantly. And so I just, started a WordPress blog and wrote a bunch of just answered a bunch of the questions that I was constantly getting asked, saved them all as articles. And when someone would email me asking me about something, I'd just send them the link back to the article. And I
Yeah.
just tell them I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions.
You know, the whole blog world has really there's kind of been a meteor hit it, and that's you know, social media. You know, right now, as far as blogs go and guns, there's Greg Ellifritz's blog, and my meager efforts at Quietly Armed. I probably post there about once every other month, and some other, you know, some other good ones out there. But most people have migrated over to YouTube, or they've dropped out completely because, you know, keeping the same hobby going for more than a couple of years can be a challenge.
Yeah, I resisted a couple of overtures as far as like getting into writing for the actual publications, just because I didn't want to have to meet deadlines and actually provide content when someone wanted it. Just because, as you all know, I have such an inordinate amount of free time, and I just didn't want any other obligations.
Yeah,
And this show started just as a fluke, and it's been going for a couple of years now. This was not something I intended to do. Trust me, if I'd intended to do it, I would actually put some effort into it. This show is obviously a show tonight that I haven't done my homework, and so we're just talking. But Kevin, do you have anything else?
you know, that's that you mentioned deadlines. That's the biggest thing. You know, if you can write and you can hit the deadlines, I love you forever. You know, P. Fitch, the guy who's doing, you know, creating a lot of content for us. He started out, you know, writing for us. He never missed a deadline, and that's just gold for an editor.
Uh, Seth, do you have any follow-up comments or any questions you would like to ask of Kevin?
You know, I mean, I think he's right about the whole deadline thing. I've been doing a weekly thing for our local paper for, my gosh, since like 2005. And they are pretty appreciative of anything you can send them that's on time that doesn't need a massive amount of editing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the world I've come from. So, like I said, I'm branching out for writing. I did get a piece published by Eric over at AmericanCop.com. I'd like to do some more of those if I could. So, just, you know, exploring the world here as far as it goes.
Yeah, I did a little bit of, I wrote a column for a local newspaper that is no longer functioning.
Mhm.
Their whole corporate thing. It was one of the big corporate giants decided to started what they called hyper local publications, and it was Patch. And I wrote a monthly column for them just because I wanted to help the local editor as part of being friendly with the local press. And eventually Patch went under, and I've steadfastly resisted anything else like that. But the other thing about the blog is somehow or another it got to be interpreted that I was internal affairs for the entire state, that people were starting to contact me about stuff that was going on in the other agencies. There's an agency specifically for that, and it ain't me. Go to them. So Adam Winch has joined us. Adam, would you introduce yourself?
Adam Winch. I run a company called Defenders USA. You can see it up back there. But down in the Arizona area now. Was in Colorado for a long time. Grand Junction. Still have a good portion of my company there, and the folks that teach for Defenders still there. But police officer for a little over a decade. SWAT, street crimes, things like that. My hot little wife, she's a patrol sergeant right now, so she's working nights. So she just woke up and she's she's tired on the couch right now. But gun trainer and just a normal everyday person.
All right. What we're going to do is go around tonight, and each person is just going to throw a topic out for discussion, and we're just going to go because I haven't done my homework, as I said earlier, and we need to get a show out tonight because we got that deadline thing, Kevin. So the first question was, since Kevin writes for numerous publications, was how does one get started in getting published and getting righted? So if you have any questions or comments you would like to throw in on that, please go right ahead.
So I'll jump in. Kevin, this is something I'm very curious about. I enjoy writing. I've got a little blog that I've just recently started on my website, and I truly enjoy doing that stuff. I saw Greg Ellifritz picked up one or two of those recently. So to me, I was hearing you talking about deadlines. to me, it's kind of when the spirit hits. I can't hit deadlines. It doesn't work that well for me. So I'm very curious about getting published. I'd love to do that. I think that's a fantastic way to communicate. So I'm very curious about this conversation.
Yeah, that's kind of I was a commercial photographer for 12 years, and most people say they're photographers, but most people say they're photographers take pictures when they want to. I had to show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, at the studio and say, okay, what's my, client shows up at 9:30. What are we shooting? I have to turn out a good picture whether I want to or not.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the difference between that's the skill set you need to create. It's on-demand performance, just like anything else. 1 second draw, 700 words on I don't know, new sites for the Glock 17. It's that same kind of ability, and that just comes through practice. My friend John Gabriel, I've known him since 91. He's a big mover and shaker in conservative media and writing and stuff like that. He would literally copy out word for word articles that he liked by writers that he liked, just so he could see how the content was structured. So that was one thing he would do. And for me, the biggest thing was posting every day. Doesn't have to be anything much, just crank out 150 words a day, longer if you can. I consider it like standing at a plate, taking pictures, and you keep fouling off the ones you don't want to hit until the pitcher finally throws something you like.
And where do you put it all?
When I was blogging, I'd put it on my blog.
Okay.
That's the stuff I'd foul off. I'm like, okay, that's good. And then I'd write something. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me submit that. The very first article I submitted to Shooting Illustrated was based on my experience carrying concealed in the office, because, well, I was working in an office at the time. The second thing I wrote was based on an experience I had at a gun range, where a young lady walked into meeting a friend of hers who was a trainer. And she walked over there, and her friend had lined up 3 different snub-nose 38s for her to try for her very first time shooting a gun. Yeah, exactly right. So I wrote an article on saying, well, what kind of guns would women choose if women could choose their own guns? We lined up like 7 different guns. They were literally all the guns that I and a friend of mine owned. So they weren't necessarily the best choices out there, but it's all we had. We had 7 different guns, 5 different women shot them. They came up with 5 different opinions. Carrie Lightfoot's organization at the time, the Well Armed Woman, picked it up, and it turned out to be the #1 article for Shooting Illustrated for that year. So it's just that sort of thing. You don't know what's going to hit, but you keep swinging away.
And did you submit this to Shooting Illustrated yourself? Did
Yeah.
they come to you? How did that work?
I submitted it to Shooting Illustrated. Very rarely will we reach out to people and say, we'd like you to write for us on a regular basis. I've done that in the past couple of years. I've got Shelley Hill from the Complete Combatant writing for us, and I've got Chris Seipert from Citizens Defense Research writing for us, and I've got Claude Warner's actually writing for us now as well. But they've been the exception rather than the rule.
No, they're solid. They put out good content.
Yeah.
Rick, you have a question for Kevin?
No, I when I'm writing, I have a tough time stringing a coherent sentence together. So I don't put a lot of credit in what I write. So I just don't publish much.
Seth, it's your turn to toss out a topic.
As we mentioned before, I'm kind of curious about everyone's experiences with the current trend in snub-nose revolvers.
Okay.
Basically, the 642 UCs, the 632 UCs. A couple, 3 of us have gotten some recently. We put some trigger time behind them, so I'd be interested to hear impressions and any sort of feedback that anyone's got on those.
All right. I did get one of these 632 UCs, and I put 300 or so rounds through it through a Claude Warner revolver class this past weekend. And I was very, very, very favorably impressed with it. 300 rounds of 32 from a J frame was not unpleasant. I suspect that 300 rounds of 38 special through a J frame would have been unpleasant. Now that revolver does come with a set of, I think they're made out of G10 stocks on it. And I did, towards the end of the day, start to get a little bit uncomfortable right where the strong hand thumb joins into the hand. And I don't know if that would have been the case with some rubber grips on it, but with the stocks that came on it, wasn't bad at all. But I guess about the end of the day, I was starting to, you know what, maybe it's time to switch over to the K frame for a little while, but it was fine. Sights you can actually see, which is a big deal, especially my right eye has gone blurry all of a sudden. And so I was also experimenting with two other things. I shot the whole thing as cross-eyed dominant, and I shot from appendix. It's the first time I've ever done anything from appendix. And
the internet says you hate appendix carry. I've heard that.
I probably won't, but I played with it with the little snubby. I'm very impressed with how that little gun operated. I did not run any defensive ammo through it. I have a box of the Federal 85 grain hollow points, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to shoot it for point of aim, point of impact. And if that matches up with those sights, that will probably become my gun that I carry places when I can't carry a gun, rather than
Nice.
a little Live 43. Very favorably impressed. I also have a Ruger LCR in 32 that I put a little bit of work in with, and I just swapped out the sights on it. I put a XS big dot on the front, and I could see that where I couldn't see the ramp. But I only put a few rounds through it just to confirm point of aim, point of impact. I have not done near the level of work with it that I did with that UC. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. And I've got one of those in 22, so that I can get some compare. I can do some shooting time with the 22 and then switch right over to the 32. I'm very, very favorably impressed with them. For some reason, 6 rounds just psychologically to me is okay, but 5 rounds psychologically to me is not. And I got no concrete evidence behind it. I got nothing other than this one holds 6, that one holds 5. I want the one that holds 6. And I'm not normally hung up on capacity, but in the little J frame world, I am. We'll go around the clock face. So, Adam, you got any comments?
Don't know if I'm man enough to shoot revolvers as much as you boys, right? I guess the way I figure it, even the Cowboys stopped using them about 100 years ago, so I haven't shot a lot of them. and when I did, I think the last time was several years ago in one of Tom Gibbons. I think the master level class, you got to shoot a revolver. So I stole 2 from a buddy of mine, took him out to his class in Oklahoma, shot those, and did reasonably well. But I like my 5,000 round drums. So
I've done a good bit of work with K and an L frame. This one class was like, that's the most I've ever done with the J frame. Probably if you add up every other J frame round I had fired up until then, it probably equaled to what I did this past weekend. But revolvers aren't new to me, but running the little small one like that's same skills, same stuff. Just in a smaller package. Kevin?
I'm not the person to ask this question. I'm not a revolver guy. I went to Claude's class last year to learn how to run a revolver in the first place. My pocket carry gun is an LCP 22. But from what I've seen, we had a writer try it out, and she just loved it. She thought it was, it's like, this is the gun that should have been made 10 years ago. It's really been interesting to see how the revolver renaissance has gotten some legs. I thought it was going to be like, okay, yeah, that's the fad of the month, and we're going to move on to something else. But there's a lot of people saying, hey, for some applications, for areas where you don't want to carry your full size Glock, 19, yeah, or a 32 revolver, a 22 revolver. A lot of people are running, LCRs in 22. Is a very viable, self-defense tool.
I guess I better clarify before I upset some in the audience. There's not many places I can't legally carry a gun. When I say that, I'm really talking about high headache zones.
Yeah.
Places where I won't.
Where,
Yeah, I won't get in any legal trouble if I get caught with a gun. I just have headache problems if I get caught with a gun.
yeah.
Or I just don't want to be noticed and don't want to be made.
Less permissive environments versus non-permissive environments.
Yeah. Rick?
Yeah, I picked up one of the 632s also. I've only put about 20 rounds through it so far, but yeah, you mentioned a lot of the advantages of this one. It's got actual sights that you can see. Even if your eyes are failing, I can put that green ball in that notch. The bullet goes there. They did a nice job on the grip. It actually is pretty comfortable in the hand and handles the recoil fairly well. And they remodeled the trigger a little bit too, and so that the action worked quite well on it. I picked one up just because it was a J-frame with sights, and also I picked it up. I didn't have a J-frame anymore, and I like to try to keep a variety around so that if my students ask me, I can speak from a level of experience that yes, I have one, I've shot it, I know kind of what I'm talking about here. Here's my opinion on it if you're interested. And I also got it just as an around the house gun. You know, if I'm out and about, I generally carry a mid to full size semi-automatic pistol, but just something to wear around the house. As an instructor, I try to limit my hypocrisy. I can't get away with all of it, but I can limit it. You know, if I'm going to advocate that people keep a gun close to them all the time, I ought to try and do that myself.
There you go. What's the furthest distance you've shot yours out to?
10 yards so far.
Yeah, we shot out to 15 in that class, and keeping them in the primary zone was not a challenge out to 15.
Yeah, I kept at 10 yards. I was shooting 32 long. I think it was MagTech 32 long, and they were staying. Once I figured out where to put the sights, they were staying inside the 8-ring on a B8 without any trouble. And most of them, if I took my time, in the black. So
there you go. My relay partner was Chris Baker, and so it was pretty easy to turn. Chris had done some work with him, and I turned, "Hey Chris, where would you hold for this distance or whatever?" Yeah, put the circle right there. And like I say, out to 15, if I did my part, it was not hard to keep the shots in the primary area. I pulled a couple of them like out of the primary, but nothing off of the silhouette at that distance. And I was shooting mostly some Aguila lead round nose ammo, but I shot some MagTech wad cutters as well, and shot point of aim, point of impact out to every distance. There was a little bit of variation sometimes in the Aguila where we're vertically string with the same sight picture, but that's to kind of be expected with cheap little ammo out of such a small short barrel.
Yeah, I was shooting the MagTech. I was shooting his full metal jacket, so I don't remember what weight it is.
Yeah. I just ordered yesterday, as a matter of fact, a 500 round of pack of Privy Partisan and another pack of that Federal ammo, so that if it does hit the point of aim, point of impact, I've got enough to load up both guns and some speed strips and stuff. There's a company called Zeta 6.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least the webpage is zeta6.com. I think the company is actually Zeta Industries, that's making some new style speed strips where you can get them they either come in whatever the cylinder size is, or they come in like a 3x2 or 3x3 type thing. Instead of in a straight line like most speed strips are accompanied with, they're staggered. And so you can drop 3 into a cylinder, spin it, and drop 3 or 2, depending on what you're running, into the other cylinder. I played a little bit with them, but the owner of the company sent some to every member of the class, and I got a chance to play with those the other night. And they're staggered ones. I think they call them the K clip or the J clip, depending on which side you're running. Much faster than a traditional speed loader, but a little bit harder to carry because they don't just lay flat in the pocket.
Hey, what was the name of that company again?
Zeta6.com is the webpage. ZETA.
Yeah, ZETA.
Yeah.
I tried those in Claude's class last year. I thought, okay, this is a really smart upgrade.
Yeah, I've got a 3-inch 36-1, which is an all steel J-frame that's got some bigger stocks on it so that you can actually shoot the gun and get 3-finger grip on it. And it will not work with any of the common J-frame speed loaders. And they make the J pack or the K pack, depending on whichever side you're shooting, which is basically a circular clip with all of them clipped together in that rubber strip. And it worked fine with my K frame, but it did not work as well with that J frame as far as getting past those stocks. I did not try it with a 642 to see how that would work. But their little staggered one, the one they call a clip, that worked phenomenal. And so with that, if I carry that 36-1, that's what I'll be carrying loaded with it. I was really impressed with that. I already sent them a message asking for one in 32 caliber 6-shot that would fit the J.
And ask for the little dry fire ring for the 632s also.
There you go. There you go. They did give us one of those in K frame and one of them in J frame as well. So, Seth, did you come on while the revolvers were still a thing?
So I was basically coming on kind of at the tail end of that period. I never carried one as a primary gun on the job. I carried a Beretta 92 as my first duty pistol. And of course, all of us kids, yeah, right? John McClane, all those guys. And of course, us kids made fun of all the people with revolvers. And so now I'm one of those guys. Throughout my career, though, I have carried some variant of a J-frame as a backup gun, either in a pocket or an ankle rig. And even though I've tried small automatics like Glocks and things, I keep coming back to the old reliable J-frame for a whole lot of reasons, So it just seems to fill a very good niche. And now that I'm not out actively chasing bad guys around, one or two alloy frame J-frames seem to be kind of, decent guns for the things that I do and the places I go now. So that's kind of where I ended up with them.
I came in at the very tail end of the revolver era. I went to a regional police academy, and there were still 2 agencies sending their people to the academy with revolvers. So I got to see all of that, even though I didn't carry a revolver. I carried a Smith & Wesson 40-06,
Okay.
which may be more antiquated than a revolver. And so I got to see all the revolver instruction. And then later on, when I went to the sheriff's office and could carry whatever I wanted to, in my Class A uniform, I carried a revolver just because I thought it was nicer than carrying a Glock.
Right.
Yeah. If it's going to be Class A, it should be classy.
It should be a nice shiny revolver, right? I mean,
yeah, I had a nickel-plated 22-4 and 45 ACP that ran off of moon clips for a little while, but most of the time I carried a K-frame or an L-frame with some nice stocks on it.
When I first started, our state standard qualification still had 6-shot strings of fire at the different yardages and things, so as to accommodate revolver shooters.
Georgia changed from that in 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Florida changed from that this year.
What's that?
Florida changed from that this year.
Yeah, Georgia. The call course that we shot when I was in the academy was called the Georgia Double Action Course. That should tell you something.
Sure.
And it was replaced with another course called the SQC, which was Standard Qualification Course in 2004. But that call course was still revolver neutral. Everything was a 6-round based on 6-round strings. Like I say, I think it was 2021. It may have been 2018.
Oh, wow.
That they dropped that in favor of the current SQC, which is no longer a 6-round loadout, but you could shoot it with a revolver just as long as you tack loaded in between some strings to get to the right round count. But yeah, I am a rare bird in that I did earn an IDPA match bump with a revolver once. There's got to be somebody else that's done it, but I'm the only one that I know that's done it. Hey, I'm sure there are. I'll get 18 emails tomorrow from the 18 people that have done it.
Right.
Mad, but all right. All right, Adam, your turn to pick a topic and run with it. Oh, Seth, did we finish up?
Oh, I was just going to mention my initial impressions on
Oh, yeah,
the
go ahead.
UC. I did pick up a 38 caliber 642 a week or two ago, and um, bottom line up front is, the steel framed Smith and Wesson 640 Pro has always been my kind of go to gun as far as like the standard by which I judge J frames. And this is everything that gun is, but it's about 7 ounces lighter. So it's the sights, if anything, are higher vis and it's easier to pick up. The shootability of it is outstanding. Just the little bit that I've shot, I've only got about 100 rounds in this one so far. I I don't want to sound like a shill for the guys that came up with this, but obviously they did their homework. So
Yeah, Daryl Bulkey and Brian Easters, Brian with a Y,
yep,
teamed up with the folks from Lipsy's. Very well done. I am hoping that a K-Frame package is forthcoming. That is just as equal.
sort of a Model 13-ish thing with good sights would be nice.
Yeah, that would be.
with a 3-inch barrel.
Model 12-ish, excuse me. Sorry, the alloy frame. So
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
So,
In 38, I don't know if I wouldn't rather have a steel frame than an aluminum frame. But I'll take what they give me as long as it's got sights I can see, because I'm not bothered about recoil.
yeah, like I said, this one it impressed me. The UC did, because it's in short periods. It doesn't hurt me to shoot any worse than my steel framed 640 does,
Yeah.
and it I think that has to do with the ergos of the grip and just some of the things they did. Of course, not everybody likes those grips. I mean, you watch Facebook and everywhere else, and it's about 50-50 on people liking them. But hey, we don't all have hands my size. So beautiful
Yeah.
thing about a revolver is if you don't like the grips, it's one screw to put on grips that you do like. So
That is one of the advantages.
so Seth, as a backup duty, right? Where would you carry it? We had one guy who stuck in his back left pocket, right-handed. Reasoning being, if you're going to it. We had a couple that put it on their ankle. We had one guy actually pull it from his ankle and use it as the backup, and then we had two guys who, I mean, they carried revolvers, hog legs everywhere they went. That's what they carried. But where would you carry that gun you're talking about as your backup?
most of my career, I carried my backup J frame in my left hand or my support side pocket,
Yep.
in a DeSantis pocket rig or something similar.
Yep.
And I would have to kind of arrange the pouches on my duty belt a little bit so that I could get a good clean draw out of it. Tried ankle holsters off and on over the years, and I didn't like most of them. Now I've had one of the Wilderness Tactical ones, the Renegade, here for the last 6 months or so, and I've really been liking it. So my thinking was carrying it as a backup gun on the support side. If I was going to need a backup gun, it was most likely because I lost my primary or my right hand was damaged or
Right.
whatever. So, and I practiced quite a bit of presentation and shooting with my support side hand from that side. So that was kind of my preferred one. A lot of my associates around here that carry them, they like ankle rigs. So that's kind of their thing. It'd be the support side leg on the inside, on the instep side. So you could reach
Yeah.
down basically with either hand if you had to.
Yeah, I like that reasoning to go into the support side, pocket, just because it never seemed to go away. Where we had one guy in a foot pursuit, his revolver, went bouncing. I think it was an acre or something like that. It went bouncing off somewhere. We had to go find it later. So yeah, so I was always curious where people carry their backup guns. So
Yeah, and the other, of course, advantage of that is it's very unobtrusive. With if you're wearing like decent modern duty pants with big deep pockets, and it's a lot more sheltered than on your ankle. It
yeah,
doesn't accumulate dust and crap like the things down by your feet do. So carried several alloy frame J's like that over the years, on patrol.
And you
I
work
try
in
to.
this place where they had this thing called winter.
True story. True story. We have actually had years where we had a fire weather warning one day and then a blizzard watch the next. So, I mean, the weather swings can be a bit extreme here in the West.
Yeah.
Well, there is nothing between South Dakota and the North Pole except barbed wire.
It's true. You could call it, far southern Canada sometimes, although we're kind of in the banana belt of the state in that we don't get a lot of sub-zero temperatures for very long. So it's kind of nice.
Did you ever carry in like a jacket pocket during wintertime?
I never have. One of the people I train with that I work with had a holster sewn in his police jacket for many years, and that was kind of his preferred method. He always
Yeah.
thought that he could make traffic stops or high risk contacts with his hand on his gun already in his pocket. And he had actually practiced shooting out of an old jacket to see what would happen, and it worked. So,
Yeah, because that's knowing where you work. There are times of the year that you would have to be severely bundled up, and so I'm just kind of curious how that impacted it all to begin with, right there too.
again, that could be an option, because if you've got
Yeah.
those nice big outer pockets, a guy could secure another weapon in there. So,
Because the fit special. The reason the trigger guard was removed from it was because he worked in New York,
right.
and he would carry it in that front jacket pocket, and he took the trigger guard off because with gloved hands, he could pick the gun up and the glove would go to the trigger where he couldn't get into the trigger guard otherwise. And he designed that gun for a very specific purpose to meet a very specific need. People look at it, oh, that's stupid, whatever. Okay, well, when you go to the thought process of what was going on,
Right.
maybe not so much.
Yeah, because your whole pocket's acting as the trigger guard, essentially.
Yeah.
And not only that, we're talking about a 13, 14-pound trigger pull in that era. So,
yeah,
it's a different sort of set of parameters that he designed it for.
All right. Anybody have any follow-ups to that topic before we move on?
Just the old guys knew some things.
Yeah, it's amazing what the old timers did know.
Yeah.
It's funny how you go back and you look at Cooper's stuff and how much stuff he got right before we had all the equipment to prove that Cooper was right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Adam, you're next up in the barrel. What's your topic?
To go along with one of the last things I wrote, how to pick, right? I wrote something called Seek or Be a Rabbi, right? I had a rabbi in the cop world, right? Somebody who kind of grew me up, and somebody I looked up to and followed. And I'm now in the point of life where, without even intending to be, I've become the rabbi in some cases. So I guess I'd be curious at your thoughts of how you pick those that you mentor. I'm finding for me that the vast majority of the time, the people that I end up pulling into my fold, and I decide to spend time with, or even if I don't pull them into my fold, I decide, hey, it's time to push things into them. It's oftentimes the people I don't expect. It's the people that you would not think would be that person, yet their mind is right, their heart is right, their skill is either growing or is already really good. And I'd be curious your thoughts about picking and mentoring other people, right? Because I think it's one of the biggest things we can do is grow and mentor others, right? Or grow and mentor ourselves. I mean, we've got to do that too, but also to others that are looking to it. I mean, Lee, you've got I don't know, a ton of experience behind you. Seth obviously does too. Kevin, Rick, you're in Junction, aren't you?
No, I'm up in Washington State.
Washington State, okay. But I mean, there's a lot of experience here, so I'd be curious how you guys pick those you mentor. And I'm just always surprised how it's not the people I expect, that the ones that seem to gravitate, and next thing you know, want to grow. And then you got to decide, do you really want to grow these people or not? And it's been an amazing process. I'm just curious your thoughts.
Are you asking about in the cop world or in the training world?
Yes. Let's go away from the cop world so much,
Okay.
right? But let's say the training world, right? Those that want to grow as trainers who want to train others, or really those who just want to mentor their own. It's been an amazing process to me. I always thought that it'd be some soldier, it'd be some cop, and about half the time it is, but the other half the time it's total Joe Jane civilian that you would never expect it to be. Yet everything here is aligned correctly, and man, they're the guy, right? It's a saying we had in our world that when you're the guy, right? And they just turn out they're the guy or girl, they're the guy. So I'd be curious your thought on growing people.
Okay. We haven't heard a lot from Rick and Kevin here in a while, so we're going to go in reverse order on the clock face this time. And Rick, you're up. Go ahead if you got any thoughts.
How do you pick that person? That person picks themselves.
Agreed.
They have to show the interest, they have to show the enthusiasm, they have to show the dedication. And it's not just interest, to me, it's also they have to show the curiosity that they want to know more. They want to know more. And then we can start leading them along, whether it's something we provide or we can point them in another direction. If they're interested in a certain thing, go, follow this person and see what they have to say about this. But it's finding that person that's curious, and the ones that I have really helped and brought along, they're also the ones that seem to start out with a tremendous lack of self-confidence until you help show them that, yes, they can do this. And they have that aha moment that, oh, I can do this. This is cool. Okay. And that sparks that really starts building the enthusiasm and the interest in it. Okay. But the biggest ones that I've had really mentored have been ones that they seem to start out, they were very hesitant. They weren't sure they could do this, and this is at the basic level, just, I'm not even sure I can shoot well or anything, or even shoot. And all of a sudden you get them shooting, and next thing you know, they're shooting pretty well, and they get excited and they want to know more. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I try and just provide a little bit of guardrail on each side to keep them pointed in the right direction so they don't get off on too many sidetracks as best I can.
All right, Kevin.
I don't necessarily have the long history of training that a lot of you have. I've really only been training now for about 5 years or so. But I've gotten to the point now where I have some people who really want to go beyond, and become very adept at self-defense and at firearms. And one of them, has prior interest in prior service. He was served in the Navy for 20 years and has a background in, security in the Navy as well. So there's that, previous experience there. The other two, though, have something interesting in common. They're both one is a former competitor in BJJ, and the other is a former professional motorcycle racer. So they both have that, type A, if I'm going to get into something, I'm going to get into it and be the best attitude about that. So when I present defensive shooting and competitive shooting as a skill to be mastered, almost like a martial art or something else like that, they pick up and go, oh, okay, great. I can pick up this ball and run with it.
All right. Seth, I know you were out of the room for part of his question. He's asking, how do you pick people that you mentor from the training side of it?
It's kind of been a real organic process for me. And of course, I think we've all been on the other side of that. I heard where Adam was initially introducing and talking about rabbis. The original meaning of that word is a teacher, right? I think we've all had benefit of people like that as we've come up, people that took a chance on us. For me, it's like I see people that, like a couple of the other people have said, they're motivated and they're curious. I always look for people that are perpetual learners. Even where I'm at now, I always say that I'm starting out the quest to, learn what I don't know about things, because, and I look for people that kind of have that same attitude too, when I'm looking to train folks.
I was fortunate enough that Tom Givens took an interest in my development, right as I hit the open enrollment scene.
Mhm.
And Tom gave me a list of books to read and a list of classes to attend. And after I would attend a class or read a book, we would discuss that. And when I finally got done with the list, I'm like, all right, Tom, give me the next list? Because now you start teaching. But I don't want to. I want to keep doing this other stuff. No, tough. Now you got to start teaching. And for a long time there, the business was just to fund going to more training and stuff on my own. And if I wanted to take a class, I'd teach a class to get the money to go. Dave Spalding is another guy who took a big interest in my development, and I appreciate that as well. I have gotten to a point now where I'm not anywhere near their stature, but I have gotten to a point where people are now starting to kind of reach out to me for some guidance. And I kind of take the same approach Tom took with me, is I will make here are some suggestions for where you get started. And I'll look for the ones that come back after that, or they start reporting their progress and wanting to talk about it. I'm much more interested in the intellectual side of things and the history. If your questions are about which gear to get next, I probably don't have much for you. But if you're wanting to get on the cerebral side of things, and study where we came from, understand the history of it, understand that this has been around for more than the last 2 years. There's been professional firearms training going on. Our current iteration started in the 60s, but it's older than that. That wants to give an appreciation to the history, that wants to think about the techniques, that want to think about the processes and everything that are involved. Those are the people that I kind of invest my time in and my effort. And I'm happy to help anybody that I can. But I don't want to get involved in instructor wars. I don't want to get involved in gear challenges and the like. If you're interested in nothing but metrics, I probably don't have much interest in. I probably can't help you much there either. I did take a break from the training world to just do a graduate program in adult education, and coming out on the other side of that now, I'm probably going to be much more hardcore onto the brain side of it than anything else, more so than the physical skill side of it. And those that want to go along, I'll be happy to have them come along with me. But those that don't, there's better options for you. If you want to put a compensator on your 9mm pistol to tame the awesome recoil of the 9mm, and go chase the lady, because you got to get that last 0.18 off of your build drill to get below some level. I'm not your guy. There's no basis for us to converse, because I'm going to ask you a simple question of, what does the build drill have to do for defending your life? I understand the technical aspects of it, but I just don't think a person's going to stand there still in the same spot and let me shoot them 6 times.
Broadly, I think any of us that are honest, and growing as instructors, we made that jump at some point where we decided to start focusing on software instead of hardware.
Yeah.
Like you said, the brain processes.
It's the principles that are important.
Yeah.
It's the principles.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to go out and do nothing but have fun shooting. Absolutely, positively nothing wrong with that. If you want to have, go shoot the gun games, if you want to go spend your time on the weekends trying to get that last 0.18 off of your build drill to get below, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm just not your guy.
Got to go get all those Pokemon.
Yeah. If you want to get to master or grandmaster in USPSA, I can get you to B class.
Bro, how about that sub 1 second draw?
Yeah, if I start with my hand on my gun, I'll get you there.
Right.
No,
I have done a legit sub 1 second draw in a class with witnesses, but I just don't care. It's just not my world. Now, show me how to go out there and do Dave Spalding's 2x2x2 consistently, and you got my attention. That's
You know,
that's got some more applicability
Yeah.
to it.
and as I gained experience in the world of police and the street and stuff, I started to realize that I was probably better trying to figure out when I needed to get my gun out before
Mhm.
some got his out,
Mhm.
instead of trying to outbeat his draw. Or alternately, how can we get this situation resolved without having to pull our guns out at all?
Yep.
That was, kind of a realization that kind of came, and that separates the rookies from the old timers, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though if you read the writings of some people who have been involved in a lot of conflict from the law enforcement side. Uh, shootings 1, 2, maybe 3 started with their pistol in the holster. Everything
Mm.
after that started with the pistol at a ready position
Yep.
because they had learned
And
to recognize.
after that, they developed the skill to be able to talk the guy into the handcuffs.
Yeah, well, hopefully they've had that skill all along, but I'm just sometimes people just won't do it.
Right.
Uh,
Yep. One of my things that, one of my failings is that maybe I talk too much sometimes, but I was able to leverage that a lot of times in police situations and get dudes to come along with things. So, it worked out pretty well in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you're much better off with the peaceful outcome than the fight because there's just nothing can go right once it goes. Even if you quote win the encounter, man, that's just life altering. It's bad. From not only from a deadly force standpoint, but even if any force, because the chances of you getting hurt, them getting hurt, having to deal with all the legal stuff that goes along with it. I'd rather folks not do anything that causes us to have to arrest them to begin with. But the ones that do, I'd rush rather it goes smoothly than have any kind of conflict with it.
Well, sitting around for 5 or 6 weeks for the criminal investigation to go away, plus the IA side of everything, right? The internal investigation, right? I mean, that alone, after a couple of those, you realize, you know what? I'd rather sweet talk somebody into those cuffs and sweet talk them into a jail cell than I would to fight every day. The fight's fun, but after a while, you realize it's actually not.
Yeah. I want to incessantly train for an event that I hope never happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting what you guys thought. I mean, on selecting people, I find the same thing that oddly, and I'd be curious your thoughts here. Oddly, that it's always been interesting, right? To where when somebody wants to be mentored, they ask you about it. Yet, oftentimes, and this seems bipolar, it's the one who's hesitant and quiet about it, almost like the reluctant leader usually ends up being the better leader, right? The reluctant one that you can tell their soul's yearning to go, hey, I want to know more. I want to learn more. I want to grow in these areas. Yet they're a little reluctant to ask. So it seems like it's the squeaky wheel that tends to be it. But it's also the one where you can tell they want to do it, but they're not ready yet, or they don't think they're ready yet to say something about it, right? I think Rick, you said they're somewhat hesitant or reluctant. I think you said something like that. And it seems like it's those type of people, truly that squeaky wheel. Hey, man, I want to learn, or certainly learn. And then others are going, wait a minute, I'd like to, but for some reason, it's their mind and their heart that's so good that you can build the skill in them later if you need to. And that's just always seems where it is for me. And it was interesting to hear what you guys had to say about that.
It seems to me the ones that I've helped, they've started out with a lack of self-confidence, and that lack of self-confidence has carried on even after they have started building some skills and some knowledge. And because of that self-perceived lack of self-confidence, they always want to know more because they figure they don't know enough. And if you nurture that just a little bit, that thirst for knowledge carries on, and all of a sudden they realize, oh yeah, okay, I am getting the hang of this. What else is there to know?
So how do you create that self-confidence? Is that standardized drills? Is that supportive coaching, a combination of the two?
Um, a bit of both. I use some standardized drills just as benchmarks so that we can keep track of their skill progression when it comes to the hard skills. Um, I try and spend almost as much time on the soft skills side of it, the legal issues, the cultivating your awareness so you can spot problems so you can avoid it. Because if you avoid it, there's no paperwork, right? You're not going to have to pay attorneys if you can avoid the problem. Okay. And if you can't avoid it, then prepare yourself for it so you can deal with it. What you were saying about the rookie cops, the first three fights are from the holster, and after that, they're starting with the gun in the hand, right? Well, from the civilian side, it's kind of the same thing. Well, instead of having the problem 3 feet from you when you realize it's a problem, have it 30 feet from you or further away so you realize, oh, that looks like bad. I'm just going to take a left and go down here. So, but to me, it's not just about the hard skills. It tends to start there and then we broaden out from there because everybody wants to know how to safely handle a firearm to start with. That's the big thing. And then you start giving them the idea that there's a lot more to it than just this.
Yeah, and in the short time I've been running my private business, I've had 3 students that have been involved in deadly force encounters, and all 3 textbook as far as justification, and they all performed admirably. But I also have a student that avoided a gunfight or avoided the force situation, and he wrote me a very detailed account of it. And I can't get into it because I don't want to break his confidence and everything there. But to me, that's just as big a win or bigger win than the other 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what you were talking about, the guy that sees it and recognizes it and avoids it, that's big. That's huge.
I had a student get a hold of me. She's taken a couple 3 classes from me. Get a hold of me here a while back. She said that I went to the Walmart. Of course, that's first mistake, right? Went to the Walmart. She said, I walked in the front door of the Walmart and I just felt something was wrong. I turned around and went back out. And apparently just moments after that, there was a gang shooting inside the Walmart. She said, you told me to pay attention to how things feel. I said, yep. I was really proud of that one.
I used to be able to stand in the parking lot as we were having shift change for midnight shift, and I could tell you if somebody was going to jail that night or not, just from the way the air felt. I'm out of practice now, but like I could walk out from the station, walk out in the PD parking lot. Yeah, this is going to be a night. Yeah, we're taking folks tonight.
Well, you can look at the calendar and see when the full moon is.
You can, in the area where I worked, you could feel the air difference.
Yeah,
it was just it didn't have anything. Everything was lit up, so you didn't have to worry about that. But it was pretty obvious buzz sometimes.
So, question for Kevin, right? You said you've only been doing this for about 5 years, right? But look at your career, right? Quite the career. My thought is that it always seems like it's those who are seeking excellence. It doesn't matter what it is, right? You could be playing piano, right? If you're a seeker of excellence and you're willing to go to those who know more and that motivate you to learn, and I'm betting in your other careers besides just teaching firearms, you've seen the same thing. That's what I'm sensing. Are you seeing the same thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The students that I had that have said, okay, I'm willing to ride this, self-defense, defensive training horse as long as it goes, have that. I mean, one's a gentleman here in the finance industry who's made bazillions of dollars and is also, high level, martial artist. And now he's picked up this as the thing to do, and like the other one's, professional racer. So, it's that whatever I do, I want to be really good at it. I've also seen a lot of interest in women just getting involved in this from filling in the gaps in their knowledge, that they know that they need to become their own self-defender. They just don't know where to start. And it hasn't reached the mentor stage with a couple of them yet, but I could easily see that happening with a couple that I've got there. a lot of women are starting to realize that this is a level playing field that they're entering when it comes to defensive firearms usage, that they can spot trouble maybe as quickly or faster than we guys can. And at the end of the day, you know, your ability to draw your pistol and put the rounds on target has very little, if anything, to do with your physical strength.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you're not measuring split times on bill drills, there's really very little difference between male and female.
No, you know, in the world of competition sports, Jesse Harrison won Steel Challenge a couple years ago.
Yeah.
She beat everybody, including the guys.
My son is in high school trap shooting right now, and the high shooter in his conference right now is a 10th or 11th grade female. And
Yep.
you know, he has to shoot on the same line with her, and that's what I've told him. I'm like, you know, you have to be good at this, because these girls will whip you because they want it. They want to be good at this.
Yep.
So can I throw something else here and get your opinion on? I've almost become both a lover of and a hater of the bill drill. Right, it's been mentioned a couple times. Right, I think it's a really good indicator of technical skill. At the same time, I mean, probably several of you here too have had to use a handgun or a gun in defensive life here in the States. And I found for me that if I was using the split times of a bill drill, I'd probably be in the prison cells today, right? So to me, that type of thing is a indicator of skill, but not realistic in the day-to-day life. And I don't care if you're a cop, Joe Jane Survey, it doesn't matter to me, right? But those type of things are, I think, hard to explain in the courts of law. And I mean, you're just sending things as fast as you possibly can. There may be that necessity. I had a buddy, he had to put 11 rounds into somebody. Well, he got 10 of the 11 in, and I mean, it was going at that fast, but that was explainable. But that's the rarity. That's the odd case. So to me, I'll use that to some extent, but I don't look at that as really the best skill, right, when it comes to the defensive life. And I've found it seems like so many people put their stock in a great bill drill, but to me that doesn't translate.
All right, Rick.
Yeah. I in my intermediate class, I have students individually do a bill drill, and the thing I use it for is basically to watch their grip. It's just a tool I use to see how consistent their grip is and how well they're predicting a sight. It's early in that class, and right after that, we get on to when we start get into the more contextual use of a firearm for personal protection. I get heavily into making each shot a deliberate decision. So that takes your splits from, 0.35, or you get somebody really good that's 0.25 or something like that, to, each shot is an individual decision. A failure drill is 2 shots here and assessment, 1 here if necessary. Okay. Because you can go to jail for shooting somebody too many times, right? And that's part of, I think, our responsibility as instructors is to not tell them stuff that's going to wind them up in jail.
Yeah. I introduced the bill drill as the first thing they shoot under a timer, but I score it slightly different. It's a 5-second penalty if you miss your first shot. Just getting students used to the idea that that first shot is the one that matters. And then all of a sudden, if they miss that first shot, you find them paying a lot of attention to the second, third, fourth, and fifth shots. It's, is it the best drill out there? No, but it's a good way to introduce them to the idea that it may not be the way they see on, Gunsmoke, where the guy just, whips out the Colt Peacemaker in 1 shot and the guy drops. And then talking about the Mozambique drill, I did a video showing the Mozambique drill, on for our YouTube channel, and I got a lot of criticism. Well, you're shooting it so slow. I said, yes, I'm shooting it I'm shooting the gun sight build or Mozambique drill, which is different than the competition Mozambique drill, because that's bam, 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 bam. You just walk it up there as fast as you can. The gun sight Mozambique drill is the way you described it there, Rick. 2 shots. Well, that didn't work. And then go for the headshot.
As a matter of fact, the way Colonel Cooper originally designed that drill, you fired 2 shots, you went back to the guard while you did the assessment, and then if necessary, you fired the cranial vault shot. It was Larry Mudgett and one of the other LAPD guys that changed the name to failure drill for political reasons. And they took out the going back to the guard after the first 2 shots. It was fire the first pair, and then if you need to move up and go to the head. This competition side where it's been do them all as fast as you can. It is not supposed to be an execution drill. Seth, do you have anything you want to add?
I know Lee's spoken pretty extensively on, shooting past the speed of assessment, and other people have mentioned that too. It also kind of points out the difference between drills, skills-based drilling, and scenario training. They're not the same thing, and people conflate them sometimes, where they're like, oh, because you're shooting these things on the range, that's what you're going to do in real life. Maybe yes, maybe no. Context is everything. I like the idea of trying to train in some form of assessment everywhere if you can. That's I've noticed some interesting sort of artifacts in officer involved shootings in our state because I've been doing kind of an informal study of them for the last 20 years or so. I've gone back in the history. And I think due to the way that we do strings of fire in our state qualifications and some of our courses, I think we're kind of artificially inducing some assessment pauses, which is probably not a bad thing because people seem to be making the right decisions as far as, legally and morally justifiable shootings. So, drills are drills, but again, it's context, right? I mean, do we say, hey, it's a drill and it's an assessment, or do we get hung up on it and say, hey, bro, if you can't do this, you can't hang, right? And that's where it comes apart.
Kevin?
Yeah, doesn't it come down to just building thinkers, right? With skill, right?
Yeah.
Thinkers with skill, right? Thinkers who can be mature enough to realize what they're in, send the right amount of rounds at the right time, or the not more rounds than they need. And I mean, it really comes down to those who can mentally survive through that and be thoughtful in what they do. And to me, that's the bigger thing. I'd rather not build shooters, but thinkers. And man, if they got an incredible skill set, then great. But I agree with you, Seth.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, your turn to throw a topic out to the floor, and we are starting to get close to getting long on time, and we need to get you and Rick in here.
I thought the writer thing was my topic, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, that was a question I asked for you, but if you want to pass on to Rick, you can.
So okay, here's this has been a bugaboo of mine for a while. There was an event a couple months ago. Sig Sauer brought in Lena Mitchell up to Chicago to a nice hotel there, and a bunch of women out there. It's a $5,000 event. You spend 3 or 4 nights in one of the nicest hotels there. Everything was catered. You got a 6 Sauer signature edition Rose pistol and holster to go with that. You got a day on the range with Lena, and you had networking events with your other shooters in there. All these women getting together and talking about that. And it was interesting seeing the reaction to that on social media. A lot of people are like, well, this is stupid. $5,000, you only get 1 day of training. Wow. But I looked at it and said, this is not, first off, this isn't for you. This is the sort of thing women who, whose family own multiple boats go to this sort of thing.
Right.
That was thing number 1. Number 2, different sort of thing. This is a community building experience. Number 3 is, what would a guy's version of that look like?
Rick, you want to go first?
Yeah, the way I saw that, I first, wow, that's pretty pricey for 1 day of training and a $600 pistol, but okay, but yeah, I immediately saw that it was a community building thing. It was bringing people into the firearms community who typically would not come into it. It was a high end event, like you say. It's for people that have multiple boats or multiple houses, things like that. I thought that part of it was great. What would a guy's weekend look like? You would probably have somebody like maybe like Pat McNamara.
Yeah.
A weekend with Pat Mac or something like that, going out doing basic dude stuff, and shooting a little bit and taking a class from him out in the woods someplace, I guess. Maybe a log cabin resort or something. I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was pretty a pretty unique idea from Sig Sauer and from Lena for putting those together. I guess they just had one in Boca Raton here last month that sounded like it was also successful. And yeah, I'm basically for anything that will bring people in to the community and show them that we're not a bunch of trolls living under the bridge, things like that. Yep. Oh, gee, they're a regular person, Maybe this isn't so bad.
Like David Yamani says, guns are normal and normal people own guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Seth?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing good people into the fold. If they like a little bit higher level of merch and gift bags and accommodations, man, get them in. This trap shooting thing that my kid's been involved in has kind of opened my eyes a little bit because the prices of high-end trap guns and some of the accoutrements are, even to a guy who has some transferable machine guns, seems a little pricey. So, if you can get some
guns is down near me.
Why not?
They're Beretta. They're the only guy in the U.S. who trained at the Beretta factory in Italy. And I go in there and I'm like, I could buy a nice car for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's like, hey, this is a transferable M16 or a brand new Subaru Outback. Yikes. For a shotgun. This only fires 2 shots, right? Okay.
Adam?
So I didn't hear about this event. This is all news to me. So I think it's brilliant, right? I mean, the more we can be missionaries of not only the 2A, but the self-defense side of it, the better yet. And I mean, think about this. There's a lot of people within the moneyed side of the world that aren't going to come into this unless they have kind of a hoity-toity event. And if that's a great way to do it, I mean, fantastic. Now I'm considering trying to figure out how to do that with another gun brand, right? HK, because I think that's brilliant, right? What a cool way to do it. And I never thought about it, like from the aspect of, hey, from the guy side, or the lady side, doesn't really matter, right? Spread the message. These are people that have influence anyways. So if we can get them in there and introduce them in a kind way, help influence this, boy, what a great idea.
Yeah, I definitely think that anything that brings people in is a good thing. As far as what the guy version of that would be, I'm afraid it would probably devolve into somebody who's, like big YouTube or something like that they got to go hobnob with, or some big special forces person, that versus what, if I had $5,000 all of a sudden drop on a training event, I'm going to Gunsight and picking my cadre for the 250 class.
Right.
Or I'll get Tom Givens and Dave Spalding in the same place at the same time and let the rest of y'all come join in. That's what I would want to do. But I understand, what you're asking about with the event there. I think it would probably get in the line of something like, spend a weekend with Grand Thumb, or, the special forces guy would probably be the equivalents.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys.
What would you think it would be, Kevin?
Training weekend better involve night vision and helicopters.
Yeah.
There's that. The one place out in Texas where you go hog hunting from balloons. I'm like, oh yeah, Swedes and a Howdah pistol. I'm like, yeah, right there. Anyway, my thought on this was, most every training class I've ever gone to, where I've gone away for the class, your weekends your evenings were on your own.
Yeah.
You know, this 6 hour event wasn't like that. They had events every single, you know, you went out for dinner and then this, that, and the other thing, all had everything. So there wasn't really that networking opportunity outside. I mean, organically, yeah, but you know, it wasn't like, you know, planned as part of it. So it's kind of like, okay, you're there to learn training, and if something else happens, cool. You know, the first time I went to gun sight, I heard an F word I'd never heard on the range before. Family. Okay, that's interesting. That they're interested in community building outside of, you know, just going to the range and training. My idea on this would be something like a gun sight, but you know, rather than, okay, guys, you know, head out to your, you know, head out to someplace on Whiskey Row for dinner afterwards. We're going to put you in a nice hotel with a catered dinner, and I don't know, we'll have somebody in there do a follow up lecture on something else that's tangential to what you're learning in your 250. Or we'll go out and I don't know, do some night vision, or you know, something where you can interact and network, but not necessarily put some rounds down range.
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, you get a, you know, a gun sight pistol out of it, you know.
You get your 632 UC.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Rick.
Something I'm not going to say struggling with, but maybe trying to push back on in my classes with my new students is, aside from the renaissance of J-frames, we're seeing an abundance of the micro 9mm pistols. And I've been doing my best to push back on that, as those are not the best choice for a brand new shooter. Okay. It started, of course, with the SIG P365, which is an amazing gun. It's an amazing little gun. But little 9mm are bullies to shoot. And somebody is starting, I've actually had a few students that bought the guns before they came to my class, and and I provide Glock 19s for the students to use in my class, and they're saying, wow, this is a lot more comfortable to shoot than my gun. Yeah, well, if it's more comfortable to shoot, chances are you'll go practice more because it doesn't hurt. And so there was another instructor in the area that was highly promoting the micro 9s for the first gun, and I've been having to do some quiet battle against that, because some of those students have wound up coming to me and they've said, yeah, the little gun hurts. Well, yeah, you know, learning to shoot with a small gun is like teaching an infant to walk, only then putting swim fins on them, right? That's probably not going to help the process. So let's start them off with an advantage, you know, and it doesn't matter what brand it is, but I've found that a Glock 19 sized gun, whether it's a Glock, Smith, HK, SIG, whatever brand, that size or a little larger, they're so much more comfortable for them to shoot that the students actually turn into people that show an interest in shooting and develop their skill a little bit, which is what they're after. I was curious if you guys have seen similar problems with that.
Seth.
Yeah, I think the Micro 9 has kind of turned into the modern equivalent in some ways of the stereotyped, you know, guy who takes his wife or significant other to the gun store and says, "Here, honey, have one of those pink-handled 38 snub noses in the counter there."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely a intermediate to advanced gun for shooters. And I would also add something I've noticed personally and with a couple of other people, they aren't the right fit for some folks' hands.
Yeah.
You know, I've really wanted to like say the G43X and the 365, but I mean, I've got hands that feel comfortable on a stock factory grip on an end frame revolver, right? And I've cut myself a few times, and I finally said, this is maybe not the optimum solution for me. I have some friends who are fairly skilled shooters. They swear by things like SIG 365 XLs and things. They shoot the heck out of them, but they're not beginners. So personally, yeah, I don't think they're a beginner's gun, honestly.
Adam?
Micro nines. Chop its head off, stomp it in the dirt, and never touch them again if you can help it. Right, right. It seems like every time I get somebody in there, I don't care if it's some little bitty tiny lady or some big old honking dude, and they've got those things in there. They just have it's a struggle bus the entire time. One, to shoot the thing well. Two, to handle it. Fight the recoil. You name it. I mean, oh, what a
Well,
horrific.
after 50 rounds, my hand hurts right here to the point that I'm done shooting for the day.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's doing it to a dude like you, I mean, imagine what it's doing to other people, right?
Yeah.
And it's always some grandma good cookies that shows up with this little micro 9, and it just beats her to death, right? Or we had one guy. He's the owner of a Chick-fil-A. He showed up with this little bitty thing. He's a 6'6" guy, right? He wants to conceal it well, so he hides this little micro 9. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It just doesn't fit him. It doesn't work well. It moves in his hands. So death to those things. I don't care where they come from. And and when we finally move into a better gun, it seems like they do a little better.
Now, in full disclosure, I am sitting here wearing a 365. I'm at home. Need to have something on. They're comfortable to carry. I head out the door, it's going to be a different gun.
And you also aren't just starting out.
That's sort of true. That's sort of true.
Kevin?
All right, time for me to be the fly in the ointment here. So on my blog that I posted on Quietly Armed,
you are Canadian, so
well, I know, on May 8th, I posted on the Quietly Armed blog that for years I would do a graphic in my classes of 3 circles: carryability, concealability, firepower, accuracy. And the closer you get to those 3 circles, in the center, you're going to find a Glock 19 size gun ish, whatever you want to call it. And I realized the error that I was making with that, because that sounded right to me, right? I carry a Glock 19 all the time. Not right now. I'm like Rick. I've got a 22 LCP on me right now because I'm at home, and there's shotguns and rifles and all that kind of stuff there. But we published an article in Shooting Illustrated in September of last year from the 2021 National Firearms Survey, and they took the time to category incidents between illegally armed citizens and bad guys. And 81.9% of the time, the bad guy took off running when a firearm was presented. So that tells me that first and foremost, before we have any discussion about capacity, recoil, sights, blah, 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 if you have your firearm with you, over 80% of the time, you win the fight. So that, to me, seems to be priority number 1. Do you have a gun with you? Yes. Can you carry a Glock 19? Carry a Glock 19. Don't think you carry a Glock 19? Carry a P365. Me personally, I've got, spider fingers. I have a hard time wrapping around the P365's, grip. Now, that being said, I carried a shield for years, so I'm kind of like, yes, I'd prefer you to carry a Glock 19. But if you can't, let's work with your P365. If you got your P365 on you day in, day and night, carry it. Have fun with it. Because chances are you're not going to have to put a round down range. You're just going to have to present it to the bad guy going, wrong decision. You deal with it now. So I'm not necessarily, for a serious student, have them switch over to something else. For a beginning student, I'm like, let's work with it. Let's make sure you carry it first and foremost over any other decision you make regarding your gun. Is this something you're going to carry? And is it something you can present to a bad guy in a moment's notice?
I work with a lot of gateway students, but they're all wearing duty belts and body armor and are carrying a full-size gun in a safari land or similar holster. So I don't get the micro 9 thing coming to a lot of my classes, because even my open enrollment stuff, I'm kind of in a niche where people seek me out specifically versus I'm getting the people that are wanting to learn which end the bullet comes out of. So I just don't see that in my personal experience. I don't see that a lot. But I have when I used to do private lessons and the like, would see it then. But I think Seth's kind of it's the modern equivalent of the J-frame.
It is very much.
It is very much so, very much so. And Kevin, what you described is what I call the small gun paradox.
Oh yeah.
You balancing what you can do with it and how easy it is to live with the gun. It's a lot easier to live with a 365 than it is a mid-sized gun. But the point of view I'm coming from is they are coming to me to learn. Now, most of the students that come to me do not even own a firearm yet, so it's easier for me to steer them in what I think is a beneficial direction to get them started. But Washington State does not have a requirement that you get training to get your concealed pistol license. So they're just coming to learn. They're not coming to a check the box class. Okay. So they're coming wanting to learn. So I'm trying to give them every advantage I can give them to develop at least a certain amount of skill and familiarity and safety in handling a firearm. Of course, ideally, it's like a person that really loves revolvers and wants to carry a J-frame. Ideally, they wind up with a J-frame and a K or an L-frame, and they practice with the K or the L-frame, and they carry the J-frame and only shoot it once in a while, right? Ideally, they could wind up with
carry 357 in them.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I spend some time in my gateway class just explaining the pluses and minuses of all these different things, and say, well, these are, you have to figure out what is going to fit your life, So, but it's just that I've been quietly doing battle with this other instructor that thinks that the micro 9s are the greatest thing ever.
To me, what you carry on a day in, day out basis, that isn't, a 2-shot revolver or something like that, or a Derringer, even it's like I had one student that walked up there, her carry gun was a Glock 44, and she walked up there and she put, everything inside the X-ring, and I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. I ain't going to complain.
One of my favorite students a couple of years ago, 82-year-old great-grandmother, came to class, was looking to learn about guns because the way things are going, she thought she might want a gun for home defense. Okay. Typical 82-year-old hands had some arthritis. She could rack the slide on a Glock 19 without too much trouble. The only way she could lock it open was with an empty magazine. Okay, cool. We can deal with this. But I could tell that recoil was not going to be her friend. Well, I also have a Glock 44 that I bring to class.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. She lit the place up with that thing.
Yep.
At the end of class, she was asking me exactly what gun that was, exactly what sights were on it, so on and so forth. 3 months later, I'm showing up at the range, and she is coming out of the range. And she is really proud. She is holding up a dot torture target. Okay. A clean dot torture target, okay, that she shot with her Glock 44, okay, at 7 yards. The day after class, she went to the pro shop. She bought a Glock 44. She had to install the AmeriGlow sights on it, and she bought a case of mini mag ammo for it. A case, of course, of 22 long rifle is 5,000 rounds. She'd gone through, in 3 months, she'd gone through 2/3 of that case. And somebody said, well, a 22 might not be the best fight stopper. And I said, she starts stacking 22 rounds in your eyeball, you're going to have a real change of attitude.
I worked in a gun store for a few years down here in Florida. And this is before all of this stuff came on. This is before the Shield EZ. This is before the Security 9. This is before the PDPF, all those types of guns. So I'm in Florida, and we get older people, not like anybody here on this call. I mean, we're talking, old people.
Well, it is God's waiting room.
Yeah, So they come in and they want a pistol because they're concerned about, personal defense. So I walk over to Glock 19. And I, show them push pull and stuff like that and how to rack the slide. They just can't do that. Okay, great. So, well, let's try a revolver. So walk over to the LCR, which is one of the better stock triggers. No, they just can't do that. And then they look over at a, single action 1911 style pistol and 9mm, a little tiny one, and it's purple. Oh, and that's the gun for me. That's the one I've got to have because 1911 style, it's easy to rack the slide, and they think it's small. The biggest problem with the small pistols is people think that small size equals small recoil.
Mm-hmm.
Force equals massive times acceleration. It's not just a good idea, it's the law. So, if you've got the same amount of force going out one end of the gun and not as much mass on the other end, what's going to happen to your acceleration? Off the charts. And that's the biggest challenge with talking people out of the small nines is, well, they think just because it's that big, it's going to recoil significantly less than a Glock 19. Like, nope, sorry, bad news for you.
I think SIG has missed the boat. They should have taken the 365 XL and made it a 22.
Oh, I'd love one of those.
Yeah. I think that would be an awesome grandma gun because that would have just enough real estate on it for someone with small hands to be able to get a decent grip on it. And being 22 wouldn't have a lot of recoil and the slide shouldn't be too hard to manipulate.
Yeah, I've got an M&P 22 compact.
I've got one of those also.
That eats everything I've ever put in it, but it patterns, it doesn't group.
Yeah.
And I actually thought about getting a bunch of those, if I was ever going to do like a truly open enrollment gateway class, like, getting 5 or 10 of those. And like part of, you come to the class, I'm going to furnish you the pistol, I'm going to furnish you the ammo, and starting people out with that. Only problem is it's just, like I said, patterns, it doesn't group. I've got a Glock 44, but I haven't put enough rounds through it to actually test it.
I've got one of each of those. The Smith doesn't seem to be terribly accurate. The Glock 44 is plenty accurate. It just really likes mini mags. It's had issues with some other stuff. So
I bought mine when I was recovering from hand surgery, and thought that that would be a good way for me to keep shooting. But I ended up just shooting left-handed the whole time I was recovering. But I have an upcoming hand surgery in the left hand. Here we go again. Yay. At least I won't write with a limp now. So we are probably way over our normal time right now. I have not kept up with when we started and where we're going. So we're going to wrap up here. We'll go around the clock face here and just everybody, what you got coming up, where folks find you, etc. Seth?
Just some of the normal stuff. I'm continuing to work for a state agency, being a part-time trainer. I've started writing some articles for some publications. I mentioned AmericanCop.com. Eric Gelhaus was nice enough to put up with my ramblings for an article. I'll probably be putting some more things on there. I'm also putting together a book, strangely enough, of collected writings of things that I've done in our local paper over the last 15 or 20 years. So trying to teach myself what I know and what I don't know about self-publishing, because that appears to be the way to go these days. So other than that, just, living my best life and trying to, again, keep defining the extent of what I don't know and going from there. So
there you go. Adam?
So got a whole bunch of different firearms training courses coming up. We're literally ranging from Montana to Vegas to Florida to Texas. So you name it, of course, Arizona and Colorado. You can find some of our stuff on our YouTube channel, Defenders USA. We also have another one called Defenders Live. Lee, I've been wanting to talk to you about getting on there sometime and Kevin and Seth and Rick, we might want to talk about that too. But a lot of different stuff coming up, and just would love to spend time with you guys.
Kevin?
Shootingillustrator.com, 3-4 articles every day. I will put the stuff we put up on that website up against anybody else out there. We mentioned Ella Fritz. I love when Ella Fritz gives us a link to an article we have on there, because that says something that we posted, something that appealed to our peers. And that's always just a wonderful, pat on the back. And then my training is at quietlyarmed.com, where I'm not doing anything over the next couple of months because it's Florida and summer and I don't want to die.
Rick?
I teach at the Skagit Shooting Range in Burlington at my handgun fundamentals classes, and then up through the defensive pistol classes. And you can find that at SkagitShootingRange.com.
All right. I am wrapping up the graduate program that I took the break from the training world to complete. More on that once my final assignments get graded and I can make how it all ended up. And I was looking forward to getting back out to doing some training, and I'm going to stay Southeast. The whole travel around the country thing's probably a thing of the past now. But I was starting to look at some class dates and everything. And as I've already just mentioned, I've got to have hand surgery on my left hand. That's coming up at the end of May. Hopefully the recovery from that will be quicker than the other one, because I won't be having the recoil impulse right on where the incision was on this hand. So I'm hoping that within a month and a half or so of that, I will be able to be actively shooting again. And so probably look for the fall for open enrollment live fire stuff to roll back out. May do something just academic related between now and then. But I know September the 21st, we'll be teaching in Cisco, Georgia. We just haven't decided which class it's going to be. So I will be recovered by then. And then maybe in the fall, probably look at running some stuff on some Saturdays, on some Sundays in Northeast Georgia. Because of the Saturdays in the South, we had this thing called college football. And I live in a college football town, and you can't get here on a college football Saturday. So not do anything other than that. So look for those stuff coming up in the fall. I will probably be rolling out some. I don't want to call them instructor classes because I don't want to get in the whole certification thing like that. But I will be teaching some coaching classes that I've got developed. That will come along with some of my open enrollment stuff like trigger management and the like. But that's what's upcoming. And everyone that joined tonight, thank you for choosing on the panel. Thank you for giving up your Sunday evening and choose to spend your time recording this. And for those of you who are playing along, listening, or watching to this, thank you for choosing to spend some of your time with us, because that's your greatest asset. Remember, we only share the link to the shows with our smart friends.